So I told you about the man who was arrested and charged for failing to return a video, a VHS tape, no less, of a movie called Freddy Got Fingered, which you probably have never seen. I don't even think I've seen it, and I've seen pretty much everything. Well, I'm really excited because that man joins me now live on the phone along with his attorney. So let me introduce to you James Meyers Jr. He's the man who's been arrested, and his attorney, Adam M. Seifer, from the law firm SeiferFlatow's. Gentlemen, thanks for joining me here in Philadelphia.
Hello, how are you?
Appreciate you having us.
James, tell us your story. I mean, this has made national news. People are shaking their heads. Even Tom Green, the actor in the movie, tweeted out that he couldn't believe what was happening here. So what happened?
Well, first of all, thanks for hearing my story. I got stopped for a bad brake light, and the officers ran my license, and they made me sit for a few minutes and finally came to the car and asked me to step out. I was on the way to take my 10-year-old daughter to school at the time. It was very early in the morning. I was reluctant to get out of the car because I wasn't really sure what the problem was. I hadn't done anything wrong. So I complied with the police, who were, actually super nice and polite, and they were really cool to me. But essentially he told me that I had a warrant for my arrest for failure to return a VHS cassette tape to some local video store. And I was shocked. I thought I was a joke. I had to ask for verification of the warrant, and the cops were kind of confused about the whole thing and not really sure what to do. So they allowed me to take my daughter to school and go on to work, complete my day. And afterwards, I had a meeting with them in the front of the police department, thinking that we were just going to clear things up. And they arrested me and took me in front of the magistrate, made me sign a written promise I'd show up to court in the end of April. But that's not really where it gets very bizarre. It gets more bizarre later on the day. I ended up making a video kind of ranting about it. And some people saw it, shared it on social media, and next thing you know, I'm talking to the news. The same night I talked to the news, well, let me say first, I've been in the underground dance music business for a while. I DJ under Mad Influence, so I know a lot of people in the entertainment industry. And someone I know knows Tom Green and gave Tom Green my cell phone number. His name's Bobby Stork, a real great guy. And
just to be clear, Tom Green's the actor in the movie Freddy Got Fingered,
yes,
and that's the movie that you never returned in 2002, or the allegation that you never returned.
I don't even remember renting it at all. I barely remember watching it. Yeah, Tom Green married Drew Barrymore a while back, for a while, but I
don't think that worked out.
No, I didn't work out at all.
Yeah,
he called me at about 1:30 in the morning from Australia, and there's a scene in the movie where he's singing, "Daddy, would you like some sausage? Daddy, would you like some sausage?" And that's how he greeted me when I answered the phone, and we just had a great laugh. I mean, it was hilarious, and he apologized and told me that he was really sorry and he was confused, and this whole thing was just very bizarre, and he offered to help in any way he could. He follows me on Twitter, told me to direct message him if I, needed anything, or and in order to keep him updated with what's happening. And about an hour later, I started getting phone calls from different newspapers and media outlets, and it's just kind of whirlwind. It's just been kind of a whirlwind hurricane of a ride ever since,
Well, Tom Green, as the actor, can give you a lot of moral support, but you have real serious, I imagine, legal issues in front of you right now.
Sir.
So for that, you have an attorney, Adam M. Seifer, and is Tom Green helping you pay for his defense?
Mr. Seifer, when I contacted him, I had a friend, Adam Corkill, who put me through to Mr. Seifer. Told me to give him a shout. He was really good, and I did. And Mr. Seifer offered to take this on pro bono.
All right, nice. All right, so, Counselor, let me ask you. Now, this is 2002. They're alleging that this warrant was issued, right?
That's correct.
All right, so we're in the year 2016. So, I mean, I'm not a math guy, but that's 14 years. How can a warrant just sit out there for 14 years without the state having any responsibility to track the person down?
Yeah, I mean, it's really a bizarre set of circumstances there because, I mean, basically the warrants stay out there in the repository until they're served. And, they've had this – he doesn't live at that address any longer, but, he lived there for a while afterwards. It's bizarre that it never came to fruition because if he got pulled over for anything like he did recently, and the officer mentioned the warrant, I mean, that normally happens, and it normally happens prior to, 14 years down the line. And so ultimately, you get served with the warrant and then the process starts. But, everyone's wondering about statutes of limitations and that sort of thing. The issue is, I mean, the charges were taken out back in 2002. So, the public policy against, warrants expiring is obviously they don't want somebody who can, just go off, to some foreign country for a couple of years, wait out the warrant, let it expire or something, and then come back and then never have to face justice. So I understand the principle behind it, but obviously in this case, James never even knew he had this warrant. He doesn't even remember renting this video or being at that shop even 14 years ago. So he never even knew this warrant was out there. So he's been living his life for the past 14 years having absolutely no knowledge that this warrant was out there. And, he's taking his daughter to school, I believe, and gets pulled over for a faulty brake light. And this officer tells him he's got this warrant. And frankly, he could have been taken to jail right then. The officer was nice enough not to do that and give him the courtesy of letting him drop his child off, and say, turn yourself in. But, this is 14 years later. If he thought that James had been evading the process for 14 years, he would have had no assurances that he would have gone and turned himself in later that day. So, the officer was kind enough to let him do that, and James obviously was respectful enough to go turn himself in.
But here's a question I think a lot of people are wondering, and if you're just joining me, welcome back to the show. James Meyers Jr. and his lawyer Adam M. Seifer from the law firm SeiferFlatow's. James was arrested for an outstanding warrant from not returning a movie back in 2002. Listen, there are a lot of people listening who may even have an old VHS tape in their house from Blockbuster Video or some other now defunct video store. How does somebody get a warrant issued for their arrest for not returning a movie?
Yeah, that's another part of the story that's really odd because, growing up, I worked at a video store, and if somebody didn't return a video, you would just charge the credit card on file and say, hey, buddy, this tape is yours, right, and here's my $100. So it's really strange because of the manpower involved in it. Obviously, James wouldn't have been the only person, if he did rent the video, to not return one, to think that they're going down and swearing out warrants and all these people.
Have you figured out which video store it was?
Yeah. James has no recollection of ever being there, but it's this place that it's closed now. It's in Salisbury, which is actually a county over from where James lives, called J&J or something like that, and they closed a long time ago, and that's all we know about it.
All right, so here's my question, right? If somebody, if I have a movie that I owe to J&J Video, and in your case, you guys are in the South, in North Carolina, but we're here in Philadelphia, but there's these mom and pop video stores. There used to be anyway. They're all gone now. Blockbuster's gone. Hollywood Video's gone. What I don't understand is, how does a private company like that get the ability to have someone arrested for not returning their VHS? Like, how does that process work?
Yeah, they would just go down to the local magistrate's office and convince the magistrate that there's probable cause that he committed this crime, which is a lesser standard, lesser threshold than our criminal justice system.
The crime of not returning Freddy Got Fingered, a movie that nobody, quite frankly, ever wanted to watch, but your client. Right. He's the only one that's ever seen it. But it's property, right? Exactly. So the idea is that he's stealing. Is that what it is? He's stealing property?
It's the actual statute is failure to return rental property, and the problem is, regardless, is that they have to show an intent here. So let's just say he had rented it, and let's just say it's true that he never returned the movie ever. Well, they still have to show that he intentionally intended not to return the movie. If he just let it sit on a shelf and collect dust, he would be ultimately responsible for, reimbursing the company the value of that movie, which, as you said, is probably less than nothing, even back then maybe. But
no, I was going to say, at this point, they'd pay him to keep it. You know what I mean? Nobody wants a Freddy Got Fingered VHS tape. So, no, in all seriousness... number one, the fact that the video store is closed now, doesn't that sort of negate, make this whole thing irrelevant? Or the fact that the movie has really no value now? It's probably on Netflix or... Yeah,
and this is kind of a case where I would anticipate, and I don't want to speak for the state, obviously, but I would anticipate the state, it should be dismissed because they're going to have a hard time proving their case. But until the warrant gets served, it never really makes its way to a prosecutor's desk. It never really has a case number.
Right.
They don't have a file set up. And so once a warrant gets served and they create the case number and then the file gets moved over to the prosecutor's desk, that's the point at which it really becomes the state's burden to do the right thing and, move forward if they feel like they can serve, justice, or dismiss the case if they can't prove it or it's not worth, taxpayer money, to move forward on it.
It's just amazing that this could possibly happen in this day and age that, 14 years later, you're driving with your kid in the car and you realize there's a warrant out for your arrest and for something that I think a lot of people, I used to rack up late fines at video stores all the time. Right. My producer, Greg, has a movie from Blockbuster sitting on his desk. He brought in that he never returned. He may be wanted. Who knows, Yeah,
and that's what I'm saying, though, is most of the time these companies are not taking out warrants. They are, they're just charging the credit card. They get a credit card as collateral on file, and they charge it, and, maybe the card bounces or something, and then they've got to go after you. But, I mean, you're always going to be, you can always sue the person in a civil courtroom, for it. It's just, I just don't see how it's worth their time.
No, police have much better things to do than go around looking for people that might have stolen Freddie Got Fingered videos. James Meyers Jr., here's the defense. I'm not a lawyer, but I would suggest, tell him you went to go drop it off, but the place was closed, like every other video store in America. Right? You drove up, it was closed. I mean, it was out of business. What are you going to do? Leave it on the sidewalk? So, I mean, it's not your fault. You tried to return it. Actually, do you still have the movie? Is it in your possession, or can you not say?
Man, don't have any recollection of even owning it on DVD or VHS, renting it or buying it, anything.
See, I have Freddie Got Fingered on Blu-ray. It was that good that I have the Blu-ray edition with the deleted scenes. No, I'm not. No, not really. No, Tom Green doesn't even own it. It's such a bad movie.
Yeah, right. Well, that was going to be my defense. I mean, because there was rumor that potentially Tom Green was going to show up in court. I was going to put him on the stand and say, Tom, you're familiar with your movies, right? Yeah. Well, you would say they're under oath that nobody would intentionally keep your movie past the due date, right? Come on.
It's not exactly The Godfather here. You know what I mean?
No. Well, here's an interesting side note. Netflix offered me a free year subscription and told me they'd send me a copy of Freddie Got Fingered, and I would never have to return it. So I thought that was cool.
Well, at least you're becoming a folk hero for this.
That's right.
Props to that cop who did the right thing by letting you take your kid to school and didn't haul you off in handcuffs right there on the spot and call child services. I mean, they handled it the right way. The police in this did exactly the right thing,
They did. I agree. They did. They were just doing their job.
Yeah, it's not their fault, but this is so stupid. No. In all seriousness, though, let me ask you again, if I could, Adam Seifer, law firm, SeiferFlatow's. Is there a way for somebody to check if there is a warrant out for their arrest for something? I mean, in New Jersey, a woman was just arrested recently for an unpaid parking ticket from 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. Is there like a database or something?
Yeah, a lot of counties will have nowadays I don't know about back then, but, they have an online system that you can check your name. But the problem is that it's not really on your radar. He's a law-abiding citizen. It's not like he's, going, I need to check for warrants every couple of years because I'm doing a lot of bad things out here. So, you can probably check it online, but it wasn't even on his radar. I mean, over a movie that he never even possibly even rented, he's not thinking that he needs to check on it, and that's the problem. Is it just kind of creeps up on you, and you get pulled over for speeding or something benign,
right?
And next thing you know, you're getting hauled off in cuffs because of this outstanding warrant from 10 years ago.
It's amazing. And you're taking a cop off doing what he should be doing, which is fighting crime. Right. The crime here was returning that movie. That would have been the crime.
Yeah.
Then somebody else could have rented it, and so you actually did them a favor. James Meyers Jr. and Adam Seifer of the law firm SeiferFlatow's. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining me. James, good luck. It sounds like you're in good hands with your attorney. I think you'll be okay.